We begin in West Africa, where the ECOWAS Authority heads of state and government has lifted sanctions on the three member states of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, following appeals by former presidents of the Commission, including key stakeholders, which have urged the Commission to resort to dialogue. This followed a meeting by the ECOWAS Authority heads of state and government, which met in Abuja to review ongoing situation affecting the sub-region. News Central's Amading Uyi reports.
The meeting was called at the instance of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the ECOWAS regional bloc. The meeting had in attendance 8 heads of ECOWAS member states, while 3 others sent high-level representatives.
This extraordinary summit was convened at a critical juncture that demands our focused attention on regional issues.
The meeting then went into a closed-door session for several hours. After an extensive deliberation by the ECOWAS Authority heads of state and government, the ECOWAS Commission says it is lifting of sanctions which have been meted on Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The president of the Commission says that he hopes that these countries will constructively engage with ECOWAS to resolve all issues affecting the bloc.
The authority has resolved to lift with immediate effect the following measures imposed on the Republic of Niger. A, closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger to be lifted. No-fly zone of all commercial flights to and from Niger is to be lifted. Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between ECOWAS member states and Niger is to be lifted. Freezing of all service transactions, including utility services, is to be lifted. Freezing of assets of the Republic of Niger in ECOWAS central banks is to be lifted. Freezing of assets of Niger state and the state enterprises and parastatals in commercial banks is to be lifted. Suspension of Niger from all financial assistance and transactions with all financial institutions, particularly EBRD and BRID, is to be lifted. Travel ban on the government officials and their family members is also to be lifted.
The ECOWAS Commission, however, urged the government of Niger to ensure the speedy release of its detained president, Mohamed Bazoum. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amading Uyi.
To discuss this, I'm joined by an African affairs analyst, Ahmed Husseini. Hello, Ahmed. Thank you for joining me at this time.
Hello, thank you.
All right, so can you discuss with us the key factors considered by the ECOWAS in deciding to lift financial and economic sanctions on Guinea and also targeted sanctions on Mali, while also maintaining political and targeted sanctions on Niger Republic?
All right, thank you. So actually, the reason that ECOWAS mentioned behind the withdrawal or lifting of sanctions against Niger Republic, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea actually have to do with compassionate reasons about the Lent season and the coming Ramadan season. So, but in reality, actually, watchers of the situation within the West African region actually realized that it is effectively the failure of sanctions actually to force a change in behavior on the path of the junta that took power in these 4 countries. And this was actually necessitated by the recent decisions of these 3 countries, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, to actually exit from ECOWAS, to withdraw from ECOWAS. This actually was a very huge blow on the political legitimacy of ECOWAS as a regional bloc, because ECOWAS currently has 15 member states, and I think 4 of these countries, Niger, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, are under military rule. Starting with Mali in 2020, then there was a coup in Guinea in 2021, there was another coup in Burkina Faso in 2022, and then in Niger in 2023. So you can see, and if you look at some of the countries bordering, the West African sub-region, like like Chad. Chad is also under military rule. It's on, like, you can also see the chaos in Sudan. So there's a lot of political happenings within the sub-region that are actually forcing the ECOWAS to reconsider its decisions. But what we've been saying is, if you look at, but I think the trigger for all this is actually what's happening in Niger. The Niger coup that actually took place in July 2023, within days in early August, then the ECOWAS actually imposed the strictest set of sanctions ever imposed on any West African state by the West African bloc on any country following a military takeover. And I think ECOWAS has been quite fast. Yeah, there are reasons behind ECOWAS decisions. Maybe there was this fear of coup contagion within the African sub-region. And then Tinubu was just coming into power in May, and then the coup was happening in July. So he wanted to earn his credentials, as a strong West African leader that was going to take, strong actions against any military takeover. But it actually backfired very terribly.
Okay. All right, Ahmed. Now, but how impactful will this decision be, to lift the sanctions on this country, these countries? Do you actually see them rejoining the regional bloc in any way?
Yeah, it is possible that they're going to rejoin the regional bloc, because they will actually have a lot to benefit from joining the ECOWAS. But what this actually signifies is, it signifies a period of weakness on the part of ECOWAS. Because as far back as recent as September 2023, ECOWAS was actually setting conditions for the lifting of sanctions against these 4 countries, against primarily the 3 countries. These include, especially in Nigeria, these include like a very clear transition to civilian rule, and then the release of the 10th ex-president Mohamed Bazoum. But today we've seen ECOWAS now withdrawing these sanctions without any condition, without extracting any concession from the military rulers in these countries, which marks a period of or a point of weakness in the regional bloc. And that's what we've been saying. Like, ECOWAS was very fast with its decision, very erratic. There has to be a systematic way that ECOWAS is going to impose those sanctions and also pursue dialogue. But generally speaking, we know that there's a lot of literature about whether sanctions, economic sanctions, are actually going to influence behavior of governments across the world. We've seen that even with powerful countries like America and the European Union against Iran, sanctions, the regime of sanctions upon sanctions have not been able to actually influence Iranian decisions. We've seen that with Russia during the Ukraine war. There are tons of sanctions, again, unprecedented amount of sanctions, thousands of sanctions against Russia, over its war with Ukraine, but that has not been able to actually influence Russian decisions. So there's a lot of question about whether sanctions are going to be effective in moderating the decisions of military rulers in the affected countries. What sanctions only succeed in doing is actually to bring untold economic hardship on the general population of those countries. There are a lot of hardship. Actually, there's no doubt that these current sanctions by ECOWAS actually impose or exacerbated the level of hunger and economic deprivation in these countries. And also, the result has also been actually mutual, because there's a huge, and booming trans-border trade between Niger Republic and Nigeria, and that has also has been affected by the sanctions. So a lot of Nigerian businesses have been affected, and then there are a lot of cultural relations, a lot of infrastructure projects in oil and gas and rail that are actually affected by the sanctions. So we're not going to say Nigeria probably is the only, or these countries concerned are the only ones affected by the sanctions, but also Nigeria has been affected, and also our political standing and our political kind of credibility within the sub-region has also been affected, because initially ECOWAS need to understand that the priority that the ECOWAS overriding priority, or President Tinubu as ECOWAS chairman and Nigeria's president, overriding priority should be about the stability of the region. So And the coup in Niger, whether we like it or not, whether legitimate or illegitimate, whether from whatever perspective you look at it, it's actually has been quite popular with the Nigerian public,
Yeah.
because as immediately after the coup in August, about 79% of Nigerian population actually are in favor of the coup. So you can see that the only recipe for instability, if the coup has proven to be unpopular, and there are a lot of different groups actually, or non-state groups actually contesting for power, that's when you expect ECOWAS to be strict about
Okay,
it, to be
Ahmed.
threatening military action.
It actually seems the sanctions had like a boomerang effect on the sub-region. And earlier you did say that one of the reasons or one of the factors that was likely deliberated was the fear of a coup contagion, among the sub-regional member states. Now, how do the resolutions from the extraordinary summit address the peace, political, and also security situation within the ECOWAS sub-region?
Yeah, so actually the resolutions by the ECOWAS, announcing the lifting of sanctions actually marks a new chapter of, improving relations, or, acceptance of dialogue. It is just significantly saying that sanctions have failed. Now ECOWAS is ready for dialogue. But on what terms, on what conditions? ECOWAS is now actually proposing dialogues, not on its own condition, but on the conditions of the military rulers of this country is concerned. And that's what I described earlier as a point of weakness, like a position of weakness on the side of the ECOWAS, because generally speaking, now the ruling juntas are the ones going to actually dictate the terms. ECOWAS has lifted sanctions. There's no release of Mohamed Bazoum. There's not any clear timeline for democratic transition in this country. So effectively, ECOWAS is just saying, is literally begging these countries to now, okay, we've lifted the sanctions. You guys should consider coming back, to the ECOWAS fold, which is, to me, is a very kind of embarrassing station for ECOWAS itself as a regional bloc.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ahmed Husseini, for joining me and speaking on this.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, now we move to politics, where ahead of the September 21st Edo governorship election, southern Nigeria, the factional candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Philip Shaibu, has vowed to carry on with his preparations, even if doing so would cause his impeachment by the State House of Assembly. Shaibu, the deputy governor of the state, said this at a press conference in Abuja on Saturday. On Thursday, the returning officer in the PDP governorship primary and governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, announced Asue Ighodalo as the winner of the delegates election, having polled a total of 577 votes. However, in the parallel primaries that took place at the Benin residence of the deputy governor, the returning officer, Bartholomew Moses, declared Shaibu the winner, saying he won with over 300 votes. Now, away from politics, Nigeria's federal government has called on the nation's organized labor unions to shelve a planned nationwide protest, saying it is not in the interest of citizens. Nigeria's Minister of State for Labor and Employment spoke to News Central Television in Abuja, saying government is working round the clock to ensure that agreements reached during its negotiations with labor are fully implemented. News Central's Marvelous Obomanu reports.
Nigeria Labour Congress, during a recent press conference, accused the federal government of foot dragging in its implementation of agreement reached in the light of the removal of fuel subsidy in the country, while the labor unions had declared a two-day protest to express their displeasure. Some Nigerians say this will not be in the interest of the public.
The current government are not acting promptly to demands of the Labour Congress. Maybe that's why the Labour Congress are going on strike. They listen only when they are pushed to the wall. When there is no threat on them, they don't act.
I don't think it will favor us, because the people that will come and invest in Nigeria, there will be they will have a fear to come.
A chart with Nigeria's Minister of State for Labor and Employment details efforts being made to implement the agreements. The minister says the government is doing its best to implement the agreements, insisting that it has taken steps in addressing the issues raised by the organized labor as it affects the Nigerian worker.
Most of those agreements have been met. Number one, on the issue of payment of wage award of 35,000 naira, government has paid up to 4 months as of December, and we're processing the one for January. And I'm sure that that is being processed as we speak. With respect to the suspension of collection of value-added tax, the Minister of Finance confirmed that that one has been suspended. On the provision of CNG buses and conversion kits, government had committed 100 billion naira and is in process. And from the last check, the contractor said that within few months that will be assembling those buses.
It is only fair that the Nigeria Labour Congress should give the government a benefit of that it will implement all the 15 points raised in the agreement and discontinue with their planned nationwide protest, as it will do the country no good. In Abuja for News Central, Obomana.
Now, to discuss this further, I'm joined by business and social policy analyst Kenneth Ikenwa. Hello, Kenneth. Thank you so much for joining me at this time.
Good afternoon, Dushan. Thanks for having me on.
Good afternoon. All right, so now the Nigerian government and the organized labor have actually been at loggerheads over the implementation of an MOU on workers' welfare. That's among other agreements. Do you see them reaching a positive conclusion anytime soon?
Well, I think a couple of positive things have been coming from the demand side of this complete quagmire. That is on the part of the NLC. I want to appreciate the boldness of the NLC membership and the team to be able to stand head to head with the government and actually make demands that are hopefully in the interest of the Nigerian people. Now, the extent to which success has been made, I think we should give a little bit of kudos to the government. At least I'm aware that some of the wage awards that was promised have been paid for about 4 months. But the question still raises the issue of Pareto optimality. How many Nigerians are actually benefiting from these palliatives, from these wage awards that are being given to civil servants, and how does it trickle down to affect or have a multiplier effect on over 150 million Nigerians that are not just living in poverty, but hardship? So I think that the government should brace up and sit up and do more, act faster. And when that is actually being viewed by members of the public, then they would gain the sympathy of the Nigerian people and maybe the sympathy of the Nigerian Labour Congress. And we should be able to rest this and see how we can effectively organize ourselves together as a country to actually get ourselves out of these economic doldrums. This is not a time for us to start playing politics. This is a time to actually be sensitive to the cries and the yearnings of the Nigerian people so that things do not get out of hand, and then we launch the system into a terrible darkness of chaos and of all sorts of things that people would not want to ever live to remember have happened in this country.
All right, Kenneth, but what do you make of the government's warning? That's the warning by the government through the Attorney General of the Federation and also the Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, for Labour to shelve its planned nationwide strike, which is slated for 27th and February 28th.
All right, I think I'm old enough to have been monitoring the way that with which governments actually come out overnight with injunctions, court injunctions to strike top movements, protests, and all sorts of things that the democratic system and the Constitution of the Federal Republic actually allows. I do not think that it's in the best interest of democracy for the courts to be used to actually give injunctions overnight, for people to be stopped from actually expressing their hard grievances, their grievances about the way the system is being run. So I hope that this will help us in our political evolution, in the evolution of our criminal and justice reform system, that the court should not be instruments of actually trying to hamper or hinder any due democratic process. I do not think it is coming at the best time now. I would have thought that the government will actually call the Nigerian Labour Congress together and other trade unions and civil liberty organizations, sit them down and actually get to talk with them and show them the data and convince them that the government is actually doing something. It is not to come on TV to actually say that, oh, you have been able to pay wages, you are doing this and doing that, and think that that will assuage the feelings of the Nigerian people. No, I am a Nigerian. I am out there. I'm on the street, despite, even though it looks like I'm speaking from the comfort of a good-looking place. But when you interact with Nigerians, everybody seems to be heartbroken. Everybody seems to be disgruntled, and everybody seems to be looking for an answer. So that injunction, I don't think is coming at the right point in time. I think there are better ways for us to use justice instruments or to sit down, and dialogue with members of NLC and have.
I think the reason for that injunction, according to the Attorney General of the Federation, says the action could amount to contempt because of the restraining order of a national industrial court.
Yes, I know that that will become a contempt of court if they actually disobey that order. But I do not know when last the Attorney General of the Federation actually went to the market. I do not know when last members of the Justice Ministry actually went to the market and went out there to see how Nigerians are suffering. So I would want to also hope, given the fact that I'm very dialectical in my analysis, that the NLC will sit down perhaps overnight. We've seen strikes, intentions that have been called off overnight, and not also want to be seen to be in contempt of the court. So it will be a pari passu issue here, a symbiosis of ideas of compromises, as the case will be. And I hope that hopefully before tomorrow morning we'll arrive at a truce that will be in the collective interest of the Nigerian people, and not just a few that we have elected as our leaders, that for now seem not to be coming to the table with us to actually give us a direction on how we can actually steer the ship of Nigeria forward in the direction of tranquility for all, and abate this hunger crisis and this general economic crisis that is covering the nation in total darkness.
All right, Kenneth. Now, apart from embarking on strikes, what other approaches can Labour adopt to ensure government listens and also implements these agreements? And for now, we know that there's been an injunction against them not to even, go on that strike. So if they don't go on strike, what else can be done?
Well, Dushan, you're trying to take me back to the classroom, and today is Sunday, so I don't want to teach. I don't want to sound too theoretical. Let me just hit the nail on the head. We don't need a dialogue in this situation. We need a trialogue in this situation. We need the Nigerian government, we need this current administration to actually get off its high horse, to talk with the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, and other concerned associations that are expressing the disappointment and the hard feelings that we have to bear as a people. But that is not as important as the other aspect to this trialogue. I need the president. I need my president. I need Bola Ahmed Tinubu to come out and talk to the Nigerian people. We need a government and a leader and a leadership that engages with the Nigerian people. Now, let me drop a litmus test here. Look at the cabinet. Somebody asked a question that was even a convener of electioneering processes for the last administration in the last election cycle. The question is, amongst the members of the cabinet, how popular are they? How many can you count on your 10 tips of the fingers to say this minister, that minister, that minister? That shows a high degree of unpopularity. So what I am appealing for is for a president that will come down to the people and engage with the people. This is not a fight for the NLC. This is not about the NLC. This is about over 180 million Nigerians, including the rich, that are also crying now. So the only solution is to actually proceed with a trialogue that will now bring about empathy on the part of the Nigerian people. And the government must be reminded of the Latin maxim that says vox populi, vox dei. But I rather would say vox populi, vox ratio, which means the voice of the people is the voice of reason. So if this is the collective of the people singing this song for renewal, for redemption, in one loud voice, I think the government should sit up, sit down, listen to us, and engage us, and tell us when or how it intends to get us out of where we are now.
Well, if I were to answer your question, a lot of people would actually say that, you know, even from the previous administration, it's been nothing but engagements, but nothing to show for it. What they want, what the people actually want as of now is results and no longer engagement. But this is actually where we draw the line. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for joining me on the news and also sharing your thoughts on this issue.
Thanks for having me on. It's nice to be back on the News Central.
All right. Thank you for staying with us. Now, in the meantime, reactions have continued to trail the planned release of 42,000 metric tons of grains nationwide by the Nigerian government. The presidency had on Friday said the 42,000 metric tons of grains it promised for nationwide release 2 weeks ago are being bagged for distribution. It said the remaining 60,000 metric tons of grains would be purchased from the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria. As a temporary response to the nation's growing food crisis and the rising price of commodities, President Bola Tinubu on February 8th ordered the immediate release of 102,000 metric tons of various grains, that's different types, from the Strategic Reserve and the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria. Deliberations began in earnest after angry youths and women took to the streets of Minna, the Niger State capital, and Kano to protest what they described as the rising cost of living in the country. Similar protests also erupted in Edo State, Nigeria's southwest. Earlier, the National Public Relations Officer, National Youth Council of Nigeria, Dotun Omoleye, was on the news and shared his thoughts.
Commodities across the country, you know, is as a result, or was as a result of the inability of people, you know, to have the cash, you know, to actually purchase the food. In some areas, if you look at it critically, you understand that the foods, the commodities are actually available, but some individuals or some persons, you know, does not have the, you know, the cash, you know, to purchase these commodities because of the increments, you know, in the prices. And if you look at the level of increments, some are even like 40% increase, or some like 30%, which makes it difficult, you know, for the expected buyer, you know, going into the market and unable to purchase these various types of food commodities. So the government needs to do more, you know, and it goes beyond just releasing grains into the circulation, giving people in a form of succor. It goes beyond, because what the federal government is actually planning to do is just a temporary measure, you know, to cushion the effect of the food scarcity / price increment.
In an effort to relieve economic hardship faced by Nigerians, Borno State government has introduced installmental payments of tax. Now, this was announced by the executive chairman of the Borno Internal Revenue Service in Maiduguri while addressing newsmen. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
The economic hardship in Nigeria is glaring as individuals struggle to survive. Borno State government is not unmindful of this, as it announces steps to alleviate the burden on its citizens. This initiative will allow taxpayers to make installment payments rather than one lump sum amidst the economic downturn.
This model is a way of teaching people to accept taxation, which once they do, we are out of our dooms, because we will then have revenue ready being paid by individuals devoid of their position. It's not practiced anywhere, but it's part of the relief we have given to the taxpayer, realizing that we need tax in order to survive. We don't have anything in Borno. We have taxes to survive. And gladly for us, it is tax that all governments of the world are relying on.
The government emphasized that the new installment payment system will be facilitated through an online portal, making it convenient for taxpayers to fulfill their obligations.
For each type of tax, the remitter number is generated and printed on the demand notice you receive, so that when you want to pay, you pay it on your phone if you like, because there are barcodes there. You can scan them and immediately they take you to remitter page. You make the payment, link with your bank and make payment. And as the payment is made on the spot, you will receive text message on your phone.
The importance of tax reform is said to be the best option to relieve the burden on citizens and to support the state's development initiatives. He explained that the automation of the tax collection process is a vital step enforced by the government towards achieving efficiency and transparency.
As at this month, February 14th, we remitted 1.2, precisely around 1.13 something. Okay, 1.something billion in 14 days' time. I think going back along the trajectory of history in the organization, this is, not seen anywhere.
By implementing complete automation, the government aims to eliminate manual processes, reduce human error, and ensure fair and accurate tax collection. In Maiduguri for News Central, Omoru Kirawa.
Still on the cost of living crisis, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has inaugurated members of the State Special Dispensation Palliative Advisory Committee. Now, the governor had earlier released three-pronged intervention measures to mitigate economic hardship at a special media chart. He said the committee was to advise and put forward ideas to create an ecosystem that would be engaging and rewarding for residents. Sanwo-Olu is the chairman, while the deputy governor, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, is the alternate chairman of the committee. Other members of the committee are Imam Abdulaziz Onike, he's the chief missioner, NAFSAT, Sheyi Shoumi, a Labour Party member, House of Representatives, Mrs. Joe Okeodumaki, chairman of Conference 57, comprising chairman of local government and local council development area, Kolade Alabi, former secretary of People's Democratic Party, Barrister Taufik Ganiyu, Dr. Shino Fagbenro Byron, Labour Party member, former DFID official Ademola Shabi, member House of Representatives, and Comrade Biliaminu Oba, a youth representative. Mrs. Shola Salako Ajulo, consumer rights advocate, Pastor Gorman Akinlabi, a senior pastor, Elevation Church, and Mrs. Kike Lomo Bolarinwa, permanent secretary, Ministry of Local Government, as secretary of the committee. Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have arrested members of an organized crime allegedly behind the importation of 2 containers laden with illicit drugs as well as assorted arms and ammunition from South Africa to the Tin Can Island port in Lagos. The NDLEA has on Wednesday, that's on January 18 and 19, during an examination of 2 containers, intercepted 56.39 kilogram cocaine and 795 kilogram of Colorado, a synthetic strong strain of cannabis, among other illegal items. A follow-up investigation led to the arrest of Falowo Samuel Kayode, a dock worker, Anjorin Idowu, and Uzeiru Ahmed Iguda, who oversees the terminal at the port. The Director, Media and Advocacy of the NDLEA, Femi Babafemi, in a statement on Sunday, said another dock worker at the terminal, Mohammed Mukhtar Sule, linked to the syndicate, is currently at large. To health matters, in a bid to improve access to quality health care for children and families affected by armed conflict in Borno State, UNICEF has handed over a newly built primary health care clinic at the Hajj Transit Camp in Konduga local government area. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Many families are facing immense challenges in accessing health care, particularly in the insurgency-ravaged Northeast, coupled with harsh economic realities. Hajj Transit Camp in Konduga local government area is where UNICEF has officially handed over a primary health care clinic to aid children and families affected by armed conflict. The clinic, valued at $179,000, aims to improve access to quality health care in the region.
it's not only the medical aspect they are supporting us with. Within this camp, we have temporary learning spaces, we have trauma centers, we have skill acquisition centers. The same thing we are doing at Bulonkutu.
We want to thank UNICEF for providing such facility and also for partnering with us at a time when Borno State needs real partners.
The newly built clinic will serve as a much-needed health facility for those living in the conflict-affected areas of Borno State, particularly the Hajj transit camp.
Alongside the clinic, we also provide the government of Borno the essential equipment and supplies, medical supplies, with the value of nearly $180,000. This is to make sure that we are able to provide the support needed to women and children and men who are affected by the armed conflict. We believe in the state of Borno, we believe in the children and women of Borno, and we want to make sure that they get the services required.
With essential medical supplies provided by UNICEF, healthcare workers here are prepared to deliver crucial services, including consultations, vaccinations, and pharmaceutical support.
Last year, we were able to vaccinate 55,000 children, and we will continue to partner with the government of Borno to make sure that all children and women and men in the state of Borno have the best health care possible, and that is in line with the 25-year development plan of the Borno state.
The initiative is also expected to ease the pressure on nearby health facilities that were struggling to provide adequate coverage of the area. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
In business, the federal government of Nigeria is expecting 1,268 megawatts of power from the concession and development of 8 brown and greenfield hydropower projects constructed through public-private partnerships. It was gathered that 3 of the power projects were already given to concessionaries, while the Federal Executive Council had approved the concession of another of the power projects. In a February 2024 document obtained from the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, it was observed that while 3 of the hydropower projects had been completed, the remaining 5 were in various stages of completion. The country has been struggling with poor power generation and supply as electricity firms generate and distribute between 3,000 megawatts and 4,000 megawatts for a population of over 200 million people. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Edo Deputy Governor Shaibu has said he's not afraid of impeachment. We also told you that hundreds have marched in support of Senegal's president in Dakar. You also heard that Tunisia's opposition figure has been sentenced to 6 months in jail. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.